None of these guys graduated from prestigious universities.
An employee of this company mocked several job candidates while looking at their resumes. Moreover, he repeatedly boasted with great pride about graduating from Stanford University. And there he was, continually posing questions no one could know the answer to, yet I kept providing correct answers one after another. Perhaps frustrated by this, he began to impose even more unreasonable demands on me.
Solve this, and I'll hire you for a $3 million annual salary,
he said, and handed me a math problem scribbled on a printer paper. As I stared down the equation, he watched me with a smirk. He probably thought I couldn't solve it due to my low education. But I just smiled back at him and added, "You'd better prepare $3 million right now." He had no idea what that smile meant or what fate awaited him. My name is John Smith. I was born and raised as an ordinary person. My athletic ability is average, and my academic performance was middling. However, there has always been one thing I've been confident about since childhood.
Your total is $34.52.
Growing up, my family ran a small store, and I often helped my grandma with it.
Whoops, I don't have any smaller bills,
a regular customer said, looking apologetic as he handed over a $100 bill. I take it and give the change back immediately.
No problem. Here's a 50, and then 60.
Give him a $50 bill and a $10 bill. I handed him the remaining $5.48 in coins and the receipt.
Well, that's impressive, John. Don't you need a calculator?
Since the payment system is outdated, there are no cash registers like those in supermarkets or convenience stores. Calculating change must be done with a calculator or, alternatively, no, I can do it in my head, by mental math.
You're still in 3rd grade, right?
Yo.
That's admirable. I'm looking forward to seeing what you'll do in the future.
Initially, I followed my grandma's example and used a calculator. But I found pressing the buttons a bit cumbersome and gradually started to think that calculating on my own was faster, especially when it was busy. Since then, I've been giving change using mental arithmetic. When I started practicing in the 2nd grade, I often made mistakes and was corrected. However, nearly a year later, my speed and accuracy have significantly improved. It was something I studied to improve efficiency at the checkout, but looking back, I think I continued because I was happy to be praised. Well, that aside, this ability to calculate was the only thing I could be truly confident in. I wouldn't say I was always confident, but I've always been very curious. Whenever I didn't understand something, I would immediately ask my family or teachers and pursue the answer.
Hey, Mom.
What's up?
Why is the sky blue at noon, but orange in the morning and evening?
You ask the tough questions.
If it was something simple, she would tell me right away. And if it was something even my parents didn't know, they would go out of their way to look it up and teach me. I was always asking why and was often teased as the why kid. Thanks to my habit of learning trivia that seemed beyond my years, my classmates at school would call me a Dr. Know-All. Like why the color of the sky changes depending on the time of day, or why the South Pole is colder than the North Pole. Or that the appearance and color of dinosaurs in encyclopedias might not be accurate, or that the outcomes of dice rolls aren't evenly distributed. Even then, I was somewhat proud that none of my classmates knew such things. By the time I got to middle school, I found all subjects fascinating and couldn't get enough of studying. I love to study. In my English class, I was fascinated by the literary works of a great man, so I got a paperback copy of that man apart from the class and read it thoroughly. Studying science made the phenomena around me seem interesting, and I reached for creature encyclopedias, scientific magazines, and even international research papers. As a result, I became good at English class. Social studies were interesting too. How the country of the US operates, what makes it different from other countries, who existed in the past, what they thought, what events happened, how we arrived at the present world. Indeed, I continued to study, driven by my curiosity. Among the main 5 subjects, mathematics, in particular, captivated me the most. There are 2 reasons I can think of. One is the universality of mathematics. What is proven correct is basically always correct. It's rare to have exceptions like in science, and it doesn't have the ambiguity of human emotions like history or English. Its beauty. The other reason is simply that I was good at calculations. I've been helping out at the store for over 6 years now. I still do all the change calculations in my head, and thanks to that, I've acquired a reasonably high computational ability. In my second year of middle school, the homeroom teacher for my class was in charge of mathematics. Mr. Robert Brown was acting as a temporary teacher and homeroom teacher in place of the regular math teacher who was on maternity leave. He was 25 years old. In my school, where most of the teachers were older, Mr. Brown was the youngest. "Mr. Brown, I can't figure out this problem. If you have time, could you please explain it to me?"
Let's see. Oh, this is surprising.
The textbook I brought wasn't the one we use in school. If it were that level, I wouldn't need to bother asking the teacher.
I never thought an 8th grade student would bring a past assignment from Stanford University.
Mr. Brown's face was a mix of astonishment and delight, clearly enjoying the surprise. After all, this teacher is an extreme math enthusiast. He's a bit unusual, but I respect him, including those quirks. Whether it's in the morning or after school, he always welcomes my questions. Mr. Brown didn't just teach me the problems, he also recommended problem books. They weren't just difficult, they were interesting, beautiful problems. A collection that seemed to encapsulate the joy of mathematics. One day after school, I went to Mr. Brown again. I had completed a full round of the problem book he recommended. "Mr. Brown, I finished the whole book."
Oh, well done. Was it too easy for you, John?
His eyes were shining. It was clear he was happy to have someone to share his passion for math with. At some point, Mr. Brown and I had become more like math enthusiast friends than student and teacher. Of course, there's a propriety even in close relationships, and he's still my teacher. I kept a respectful distance. No, it was quite challenging. The problems were excellent, and I really enjoyed them.
That's great to hear. Then, I'll give you some homework.
Mr. Brown smiled, pulled out a sheet of paper from a clear file, and started writing with a black ballpoint pen he took from his breast pocket. And he started writing with a black ballpoint pen he took from his breast pocket. I watched eagerly, wondering what kind of problem it would be, and saw this written on the paper. Create a math problem that even Robert Brown can't solve. I was stunned by the assignment. He continued.
You're already at a sufficient level when it comes to solving problems. That's why I want you to try looking at it from a different perspective.
A different perspective. According to the teacher, there's a view you can see just by solving problems. He said that there's an unseen beauty in mathematics, and he wants me to discover it. I'll give it a try.
I'm looking forward to it.
I took the paper with the homework assignment and went home for the day. The next day, I quickly set to work creating a problem and presented it to Mr. Brown. However, he solved it as easily as if twisting a baby's arm, in no time at all.
It's a beautiful problem. I can really feel how much you love mathematics.
Putting his pen back in his breast pocket, the teacher continued.
But in sticking to beauty, the difficulty has been sacrificed.
Indeed, the difficulty wasn't high. Just as the teacher said, it seemed I was too focused on creating a beautiful equation and solution.
All right, bring me another masterpiece when you've made one. I'll always be waiting.
Yes. The day after that, I made another problem thinking, this time for sure, and took it to the teacher with high hopes. The second problem took longer to answer than the first. Though he ultimately solved it, I thought it was an improvement over yesterday. Feeling proud, I listened eagerly for his feedback.
It was indeed a difficult problem. It took me longer than I thought. But what did you think when you looked back at your own problem?
Well, I immediately understood what Mr. Brown meant. I had been thinking the same thing while creating it. It's messy, isn't it?
Well, to put it negatively, yes. This time, you focused too much on the difficulty. It can't be called a good problem.
To create a problem that Mr. Brown would groan at, it needed to have not only the highest level of difficulty, but also the highest level of beauty. From then on, I continued to try over and over again. A beauty surpassing the first problem, and a difficulty surpassing the second. Striving for both, another month had passed. It was my 22nd attempt at creating a problem.
Well, this is...
It's 10 minutes after facing the problem. As the outside scenery began to darken, Mr. Brown's calculating hands came to a halt. His usual ballpoint pen spun lightly atop his hand.
Not bad, John.
Eh.
Man, I'm stumped. I can solve this problem.
He declared defeat, but it took me a few seconds to comprehend his words. Once I grasped the situation, emotions flooded over me. Really?
Yes, it's incredibly difficult. No matter which angle I approach it from, I don't feel any closer to the solution. Yet, the question is remarkably concise. I think it's a fantastic problem, as good as it gets.
I did it. I did it. I couldn't help but clench my fist and strike a triumphant pose. Normally, I was the quiet one in the corner, but this time, I made quite the commotion. That's how much I was driven to outdo the teacher. Even after going home, eating dinner, and taking a shower, my excitement didn't fade. Lying in bed, trying to close my eyes, my thoughts kept swirling around and around. Eventually, I fell asleep as if knocked out, but needless to say, I was exhausted the next day from lack of sleep. Months passed since that event. My love for mathematics grew even more, and I finally started tackling the Millennium Prize problems. Solving any of them would yield a prize of $1 million. My competitors were genius mathematicians from all around the world. Needless to say, it wasn't easy, and I found myself going back and forth between the staff room and the library every day. Sometimes, I worked so hard that I got dark circles under my eyes from lack of sleep. Seeing my condition, Mr. Brown made a proposal. Am I trying to for the International Mathematical Olympiad?
Yes, the registration is starting soon. I'd really like you to participate, John. It could be a good change of pace for you, right?
Indeed, it seemed like it would be a good refreshment. Plus, I was curious to see how far my abilities would hold up on a global scale. All right, I'll give it a try.
That's the spirit. Leave the arrangements to me.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I appreciate it. And so, I found myself participating in the Mathematical Olympiad, almost as if I was pulled into it by the hand. I never imagined I would win a gold medal at an international competition. Realizing I could compete on a global scale boosted my confidence in my mathematical abilities. Even though I became known as the odd one out, that confidence told me, what others think doesn't matter. I love mathematics. Thus, I always continue to look at formulas. Those moments were truly happy for me. By the time I was in my third year of middle school, my surroundings had changed drastically. I had to say goodbye to Mr. Brown, who had finished his substitute teaching while another teacher was on maternity leave. To make matters worse, the family business couldn't sustain itself any longer, and we were forced to close the shop. My grandma began showing signs of dementia and had to be placed in a facility. Under such stress, my dad fell ill and passed away shortly after. Being an only child, it was just my mom and me left. We had to sell the building we used both as a home and a shop, and move to a more affordable area far away. The onslaught of despair felt like a bad dream. At my new school, I was the odd one out and spent a lonely year. During that time, memories of Mr. Brown and mathematics were my only solace. Nearly 3 years later, as my high school life was coming to an end, it was time to make serious decisions about my future. I was confident I could get into a decent university if I continued as I was. However, Mom, I've decided not to go to college and start working instead. I brought this up to my mom as we were discussing my future path.
What are you talking about, John? You've always said you wanted to go to college.
That's true, but I can't let you bear all the burden. After closing the shop and losing my dad, my mom had raised me on her own. It had been 4 years since our lives had changed. Going to college would mean needing more money and time.
You shouldn't worry about that. It's your life, John. You should do what you want to do.
But if I do that,
the biggest tragedy would be for my son to feel restricted because of our situation. I want you to be free to spread your wings without being defined by anyone else.
Mom. Hearing those words, I couldn't help but cry. With the utmost gratitude, I chose to pursue further education. And now, my college life is coming to an end without any delays. I will be able to graduate in 4 years. While working on my thesis, I also focused on job hunting. Even though my mom told me not to worry about home, I looked for jobs nearby so I wouldn't have to move away from home. The cost of my grandma's care facility and the unpredictability of my mom's situation worried me. After registering my profile on a job hunting online system, I quickly received an invitation for an interview. The job was in the IT industry, and the workplace was less than an hour from home. Considering it a good opportunity, I decided to apply. All right, I'm off.
Okay, Take care.
I checked my appearance in the entrance mirror one last time. With determination in my heart, I left the house, my unfamiliar leather shoes clacking against the ground. My mom watched me go with a tender look in her eyes. In response, I too offered a smile. Entering the venue with nerves tingling, I received instructions from a staff member. After waiting at the designated spot, my name, along with a few others, was called. I replied with a bright voice as instructed and followed to the interview room. Upon entering as instructed, I faced two interviewers, a man and a woman. The man was thin and tall, wearing glasses. I imagined him to be a nervous man. Both appeared to be around 30 years old. After being prompted to sit, I did so with a polite "excuse me." The male interviewer began.
I'll be handling today's session. My name is William.
Following his introduction, the female interviewer also introduced herself, and we all exchanged greetings. We, the job seekers, handed our resumes to William. He glanced over them, his glasses catching the light. After about a minute, he spoke up.
None of these guys graduated from prestigious universities.
We were taken aback by his words, sitting in stunned silence. We were sitting in stunned silence. The female interviewer seemed flustered, looking down. However, William, undisturbed, sneered and continued.
You see, I graduated from Stanford University. I don't really need anyone less capable than myself.
A clear case of academic elitism.
Now the question for you, Chun.
Yes.
What is the smallest number divisible by all integers from 1 to 10?
The question caught me off guard. I was expecting something about introductions or self-promotion.
Don't know. Well, I guess with your educational background, you wouldn't.
After high school, I attended a local university. The reason was the same as the reason for getting a job nearby. As a result, my alma mater was considered average at best. The answer is 2,520.
All right.
He likely wanted to assert his superiority through academic or knowledge-based challenges, but the question was about mathematics. I answered as calmly as I could.
Well then, what plant did the early Japanese mythology use to drive away evil spirits?
What's with this guy? That was my only thought. Perhaps frustrated by having his math-related trivia immediately answered, he now resorted to completely unrelated topics. Unfortunately for him, being called as Dr. Noel in my childhood, regardless of the field, that is Peach. I answered immediately again, and William's frustration was evident. He continued with several more irrelevant questions. However, I kept providing the correct answers one after another. Perhaps feeling aggrieved by this, he pushed further.
Then solve this.
Frustrated that he couldn't boast as he wanted, William scribbled something on the back of a document.
Here, take this.
He tossed a paper in my direction in a careless manner. It was a math word problem, written in his messy handwriting that seemed to leak his irritation. This is.
Huh? Can't solve it, can you? I thought so.
As soon as he saw my displeased expression, William's mood seemed to slightly improve. Clearly, he just wanted to assert dominance.
If you solve this, I'll hire you with an annual salary of $3 million.
He watched me, smirking, as I stared at the equation. He probably thought there was no way I could solve it. But I returned his smile. Yes, it was indeed a difficult problem. I might not have been able to solve it upon first glance. If it was my first time seeing it, that is. I've solved it. Please remember your promise of $3 million. I wrote down the answer within minutes and handed it back to the interviewer.
What?
He looked at me incredulously, his voice losing its confidence.
Don't try to bluff your way through.
Please grade it. William's hands trembled as he held the paper, scrutinizing my answer. No matter how much time passed, he couldn't declare it right or wrong.
What a shame. Wrong.
Do you know the answer?
What?
This problem. I returned the pen to my chest pocket while looking him in the eye. The reason I could smoothly solve such a difficult question. I said to him like this. I created this problem when I was in middle school.
Is that?
Why do you know a problem that only my teacher and I should be aware of? At that question, his face turned red, and he began to tremble again. Just then, the door to the interview room opened, and a man entered. Though his presence had changed, he was a familiar face. I was surprised, but William seemed even more shocked.
President.
Is he, President? The man who had just entered was my mentor. The person who had inspired my deep dive into mathematics, Mr. Brown. William called him the president, which doubled my surprise. I had researched the company beforehand, and if Mr. Brown was the president, I would have noticed. Mr. Brown, it's been a long time.
John, it has indeed been a while.
After leaving his position as a temporary middle school teacher, Mr. Brown joined this IT company. Due to his exceptional skills, he quickly climbed the ranks, and he had recently been appointed as the new president. The materials I had received and the website I had checked were apparently not yet updated with the latest information. William knew about that problem because Mr. Brown had mentioned it during a casual conversation.
By the way, William, I overheard a bit. Are trivia about mathematics and Japanese mythology written in the interview manual?
Well.
They're not, are they? Why did you do such a thing?
I wanted to recruit talented individuals. I thought these candidates weren't qualified based on their educational backgrounds.
Hearing his explanation, Mr. Brown nodded in understanding.
Individuals like John here prove that talent isn't tied to academic background. Graduating from a famous university doesn't necessarily make someone commendable.
After a pause, Mr. Brown took a deep breath and continued.
I'm referring to you, William.
Subdued by the president's reprimand, William became noticeably quieter.
I apologize for the inconvenience caused to you all.
While apologizing, Mr. Brown glanced over the resumes of the job candidates.
What impressive backgrounds. You've all passed the first interview. I can promise a salary of $3 million, but I encourage you to take the second test.
A few days later, I received an invitation to the second round. Despite my concerns about encountering someone like William again, the prospect of working under Mr. Brown motivated me to aim for an offer. I successfully completed all the stages of the exam, including the third round. The last was the interview with the president, which ended with a conversation with Mr. Brown. I accepted the job offer without hesitation. As expected from an IT company, many of the employees, including the president, were young. Starting as a newcomer, I was initially tasked with data aggregation and analysis. my mathematical skills proved to be very useful, making my work enjoyable and productive. Although I rarely saw William due to being in different departments, we occasionally crossed paths in the hallway. I felt awkward at first, but then I got used to it because he just stared at me resentfully. And now I hardly gave it a second thought when he glared at me. 2 years my senior, Peter White remarked, "William's a tall and scary, huh?" But having seen his deflated state during the interview, I couldn't feel intimidated by him at all. Sometime after joining the company, we received a project to present to a large corporation. It was a project to create their new system. Delighted, I was chosen as a member of the project team despite being a newcomer. Peter from my department and, surprisingly, William from another department were also selected.
Ugh, seriously?
Hearing about William's involvement, my senior openly expressed his dismay. "Don't worry, Peter. It'll be fine."
Then you're in charge of dealing with him.
"Dealing with him?" I replied half-jokingly, though Peter seemed quite serious. "Great," as if I needed more on my plate. The day before the presentation, I arrived at the office a bit later than usual, but not late enough to cause concern. Rushing in, I greeted everyone. "Good morning."
John, we're in big trouble."
Peter looked panicked. Looking around, I noticed the other project members, especially, seemed distraught. What happened?
"The data for tomorrow's presentation and the system we created are gone."
What? I momentarily wondered if this was a joke or some sort of prank. Was this some kind of punishment for being slightly late? But it appeared to be a real crisis. Did we have backups?
"We checked, but those were deleted too."
Seriously, what about the USB in the safe? Even if it's not the latest, it's better than nothing. I asked, hoping for a backup plan, but Peter shook his head. By the time he arrived at work, the safe had already been opened, and the USB was missing. There were no signs of forced entry on the safe, suggesting the culprit was someone from inside a company.
Instead of looking for the culprit, we should focus on recovery first.
William tried to calm the suspicion-filled atmosphere. Indeed, he was right. While the culprit could be sought out later, the presentation deadline wouldn't wait. The team agreed and began the recovery efforts urgently. However, Peter had a different perspective.
"If we're not looking for the culprit, doesn't that make William the most suspicious?"
Come on, Peter.
You just suspect me. Can we start working first, please?
Though Peter seemed to suspect William, it was William who was leading the recovery efforts. The recovery was challenging, but leveraging my mathematical skills fully, we managed to make progress. The situation improved significantly when Mr. Brown, now the president, also lent a hand. Thanks to everyone's efforts, including William's, the presentation materials were completed. Throughout the day, Peter appeared irritated. Though he was helping, it seemed like he was struggling to focus on his work.
Everyone did a great job.
The president's voice filled the dim office as darkness enveloped the outside world. It was already late. When I looked at the clock, both the minute and hour hands were pointing at 12. "Good job all of you today." Everyone started to say their words of appreciation to each other. Normally, I'd hurry home, but unfortunately, there were no more trains. It seemed ridiculous to spend dozens of dollars on a taxi to get home. So, we ended up staying the night at the office. After being away for a few minutes, the president returned to the office. After stepping out for a few minutes, Mr. Brown returned with a large tray in his hands.
This is my way of thanking everyone for their hard work. Please help yourselves.
He placed the tray on the desk. It was sushi. The realization that delivery was still possible at this time. Come to think of it, I was so engrossed in my work that I forgot about dinner. With a feast laid out before us, everyone remembered just how hungry they were. The sushi disappeared rapidly until only pickled ginger and empty plates remained.
Now, are you all full?
After the meal, as sleepiness began to set in, the president started a conversation. He was holding a tablet in one hand and operating it with the other.
The loss of crucial data and the USB from the safe. What a significant incident.
It was a reminder of why we were staying so late.
However, the culprit made a mistake underestimating our security.
As he said this, the president turned the tablet screen towards us.
It's troubling, Peter.
The screen showed Peter taking the USB from the safe. It recorded around 6:30 that morning. Only someone with key duty would be in the office at that hour. And it wasn't his week.
This week's key duty was assigned to a girl from another department. She mentioned that around 6 a.m., she saw a familiar car parked at the convenience store.
It seems she didn't actually see Peter then, but because the same car was parked in the company's parking lot around 8 a.m., it left an impression on her. The car's color, model, and license plate number were all identified, leaving him in a very difficult position.
Shall we hear an explanation?
Ick.
He hung his head and groaned. Noticing the cold stares from the team members, Peter eventually began to mumble.
Actually, I've received an offer from another company.
He revealed that he was secretly headhunted due to his excellence. They offered me better terms than this company, and I couldn't turn it down.
But there was a condition attached to accepting the offer. That was my motivation for what I did.
If this project succeeded, our company would take a significant lead over our competitors. He was ordered to ensure that didn't happen, he explained, his voice breaking with sobs. However, no matter the circumstances, his actions were inexcusable. The president fired him on the spot and sent him home forcibly. As everyone else settled into sleep, I found myself awake, gazing out the window.
Can't sleep.
The president. Yo, I guess I'm just not feeling it tonight. There was tension, yes, but also sadness for the senior who had taught me so much, now gone.
Well, we've been through a lot. How about we do some math to clear your head?
No way, thank you, but I've had enough for today. We shared a laugh, reminding me of our discussions back in my middle school.
Actually, I should tell you, it was William who suggested you for this project.
What? William did?
Yes.
It was a surprising turn of events. Given that I thought he had held a grudge against me since the first interview, this revelation was quite a shock. However, today's events had made me see him in a new light. Seeing his dedication to the recovery effort had completely changed my initial impression of him. People can change, for better or for worse, just like William and Peter. For better or for worse. It just like William and Peter.
William seems to recognize your abilities. He's a talented individual himself, though a bit peculiar in some aspects.
I almost blurted out, "That goes for you too, the president." But I held back. If he says you too, it's over. After more conversation, Sleepiness began to take over the tension.
John,
Yes,
could you finally tell me the answer to that problem you created?
sure, let's go over it after 10 years. I began to jot down the problem statement and explanation on the back of some unnecessary documents on the desk. As expected, the president quickly grasped the difficult parts. It seemed the solution was simpler than expected, like finding the egg of Columbus. And finally, so the answer is undefined.
Indefined, ho.
Yes, kind of like humans, right?
Yes, like mathematics and like the human heart. Truly a difficult and beautiful problem.
I had wished we could talk about mathematics like old times. The work comes first. It's time to sleep and prepare for the presentation. Laying down on stacked cushions, I fell asleep immediately from exhaustion. The next day, our presentation to the client was a huge success. They decided to adopt our system. Moving forward, we'll start with updating confidentiality agreements and other procedures. Once that's completed, the system will officially go live.
It's going to get busy from here.
The president announced to the project team. Despite understanding the immense workload ahead, no one showed any displeasure. There was a definite bond among the team members. After some time, I found myself diligently working as one of the president's key supporters, with William being the other. William was the other wing. Both of us had been directly acknowledged by President for our capabilities. By then, I had grown to respect William's diligence. Well, I do respect you, but your jump to conclusions and narrow-mindedness could use some work. He looked like he might get angry for a moment, but he responded quite calmly.
You might want to work on not saying everything you think, too.
We hadn't exactly become friends, but this relationship, full of confrontations, wasn't too bad. Because we could exchange opinions without any reservations. Humans are indefinable. Good people can turn bad. Bad people can turn good. Having experienced various misfortunes and happiness, I was no exception.